You ever see those hats? Trump was right about everything. It's common sense, most of it. Trump was right about everything. Under crooked Joe Biden, I took that name away from Hillary. That was a good day for her. She was so high. She celebrated that night. Because I don't like using it, but it just seemed, we used to say Sleepy Joe, and we could call them both. But I think crooked Joe Biden is better. And I took it away from Hillary. Now we call her Beautiful Hillary. She's a beautiful woman. We call her Beautiful Hillary. And we took... It's a beautiful woman. Great. It's great beauty. And we took it away. And we're using crooked because for Joe, it does fit. Yeah, let's face it. But under Biden, the 30-year mortgage rate recently hit a 23-year high. I'm sure you're thrilled about that, those of you that are looking for financing and have absolutely no chance of getting it. Because, number one, they don't give you money. Number two, if you get it, you have to pay a number that's crazy. Under my leadership, it hit an all-time low in history. Under my leadership, under what we did, we were talking about mortgage rates that were the lowest they've ever been for people going out and buying a house. That's really good. The Biden $2,000 monthly payment buys you a house worth, as an example, $300,000. And under Trump, it would have been $460,000. In other words, you picked up $160,000 just by having me as your president. And that'll happen again, except much more so. It'll happen again. So you pick up $160,000 in a very short period of time. Now it's going to happen again, much bigger, because we're going to do things like we're going to close the wall. Very simple. We're going to close the wall. Don't forget, we built 561 miles of wall. People hate to say that. If there's a piece of wood laying on the ground, they say, that was a renovation. That wasn't. If there's an old piece of steel that's 40 years old that used to be a little bit of a railing, they say, that wasn't. We're building these things that are 30 and 40 feet high to the exact specifications of Brandon Judd, who's a fantastic guy, Tom Holman. They wanted exactly this. I said, I'd like to use concrete plank. They said, no, it's not as good. We need steel, reinforced steel. We need rebar. We need concrete inside. We need all different materials. I said, that's a little more expensive. You know that, right? But we did everything they wanted. And then we have an anti-climb bar on top. That's what that big steel panel is, which I never like to look. But they say, but it works much better. You can't get by it. It's called anti-climb. So I give you this little information. But we built 561. They said 460. But no, it's 561. We're getting ready to do another 200. It was ordered. It was built. It was all done. The hard part was done and laying there. And then we had a rigged election. And then Biden came in. And now they're selling that for 5 cents on the dollar, I understand. And now he said, let's go out and build a wall. Do you believe this guy? And this wall, they're going to have brand new stuff. This is the craziest. When foreign countries watch all of this, they can't believe it. They say, how can anything? And don't kid yourself, the stupidity of Afghanistan, what happened there is one of the reasons that Putin went in, one of the reasons that China's so aggressive all of a sudden. They weren't aggressive with me at all. They were very nice. I got along very well with them. They weren't aggressive, and Putin would have never gone into Ukraine. He would have never even thought about going. We talked about it. They hated that I got along with him. They think it's a terrible thing to get along. They said about President Xi, they asked me, I said, yes, he's a very smart man. The headlines, Trump says that President Xi of China is smart, meaning it's a compliment. I said, no, what am I supposed to say? He controls with an iron fist 1.4 billion people, and they want me to say he's a dummy. He's not a dummy. And they've got our number now because we've got a dummy. We have a legitimate dummy. So together, all of us, we created the greatest economy in the history of the world. In fact, we really did it twice because we did it after COVID. COVID came in, nobody knew what the hell it was. We did an incredible job. We've never gotten enough credit for the job we did with COVID, but that's okay because we got a lot of credit for other things and we got a lot of credit for the economy. But we did it twice. We built back the economy. The stock market was actually higher when we handed off on January 20th. The stock market was higher than it was just before the China virus came in. I call it the China virus because I like being accurate. It's good to be. I also fought for, and nobody did this. I fought for the farmers. There's never been a president that fought so hard for the farmers and did so much for the farmers. And we ended in addition. How many people in this room are actual farmers? Real? Okay. That's good. That's pretty good. Everybody's indirectly related. She's a farmer, definitely. She's a good-looking farmer you are. But we also, in addition to the $28 billion, we ended the NAFTA disaster. It was the worst trade deal ever made in the history of our country. And we replaced it with what many say is the best trade deal, the USMCA. That's Mexico-Canada. And that deal is so good that Mexico and Canada are trying to renegotiate the deal now with the Biden administration. And I hope they're not going to be successful. And so for years we had to suffer with NAFTA. Then we make a great deal, and they want to renegotiate the deal. They better not renegotiate it. Under and unlike Ron DeSanctimonious, I've been unwavering because, he was against ethanol, totally against. Now all of a sudden he came out for it the other day. I'm so impressed. One thing about a politician, because I've dealt with politicians all my life, then all of a sudden I never thought I'd be one. And I guess I am a politician. But I will say one thing you always see with a politician, whatever they're in first, that's where they go. So he's coming. I heard he made some fairly positive statements about ethanol last week, finally, because he tried to kill it entirely. But guaranteed, one thing for certain, he will try and kill it as soon as the election's over, if he wins. And if he wins, I think it will be an electoral miracle based on the numbers. But he'll go back. Ron also, and some of the others, but Ron was very destructive on Social Security. He wanted to raise the minimum age, and he wanted to toy with it, and he wanted to weaken it. And I said, these people, they deserve it. We can do other things. Like, we can make so much money by doing a thing called drill, baby, drill. We don't need this. We don't need this. You know, we have more oil and gas than any country in the world. Most people don't know that. And it's very good, high quality, not like Venezuela. Do you believe we're buying their tar? You know, they have tar. It's very thick, very heavy, costs a lot. And you know where it gets refined? You know, for the environmentalists in the crowd? Let's see, there's a woman back there. For the environmentalists that hate this whole concept, it's refined, it's cleaned and refined in Houston, Texas. So this tar gets brought in because it's very, very heavy and very not good. But with money, you can make it beautiful. You can make it into a fine champagne if you want. But what happens is they bring it in, and all of those fumes go into the air. In America, isn't it great? So, you know, when I left, we had Venezuela on the run. We would have had something, and now they're buying oil from Venezuela. The whole thing is crazy. It's like April Fools. Everything is the same. We want open borders. We want no voter ID. Think of it. Everything they want is the opposite of what it should be. They take the oil from Venezuela, make the dictatorship wealthy as hell. They're sending out all the people. You're going to have like 15 rich people living in Venezuela with numbers that are going to be staggering. But, you know, Venezuela was ready to do an old foldo, and then this guy came along and he started buying their oil. I don't even call it oil, but buying their oil in numbers that nobody's ever seen before. It's a horrible thing that's happened. And I can say the same thing for Iran. You know, we were not allowing China to buy. I said, don't buy, because if you buy there, we're not going to let you do any business in the United States. They said, like I said, we won't buy. And they didn't. And we were ready to make a deal with Iran. Had the election not been turned out the way it did, to put it, I'm trying to be nice, right? Had it not turned out the way it did, like when I say that, I mean, had the election not been rigged, we would have had a deal. We would have had a deal with Iran. We would have had no inflation. Russia would have never, ever in a million years gone into Ukraine, and they didn't. You know, somebody said, well, how do you know? I said, because for 4 years, it wasn't even a thought. And I told Putin, you can't do it. And I told him what would happen if you did, and he said, no, you won't do that. I said, yeah, I will do 100%, Vladimir. You and I are friends. My father always used to say, take the lumps out. I said, Vladimir, you and I are friends. We're good friends. But if you go in, we're going to hit real hard. And I can't tell you what I told him because it would be not a nice thing. But he said, no way you would do that. There's no way. I said, way. They go, no way. And you know what? The end result, I did a poor job. He didn't believe me. But you know what? He believed me 10%, and that was enough. And he never went in. But there's another reason he wouldn't go in. You know, you're close to $100. You're going to be over $100 a barrel very soon. You were at $100 after a short period of time with Biden. This guy was making a fortune. They were making a fortune in Russia and other countries with the oil. With me, I was at $40 a barrel, $30 a barrel. We were selling gasoline for much lower than the number I just gave you. We had times when we were actually lower. That's why I told you to go out and buy more land and bigger tractors. Remember that? I said, don't worry about it. Just go out, buy more land and bigger tractors. And a lot of you did. The ones that did came out very well because I made all those deals for the farmers and for your state. But just think about it. With him, I said, two things. Number one, you can't do it. And number two, the oil price at $40 a barrel doesn't allow him to prosecute a war because they make money, but not that much. And they have to run a country. At $100 a barrel, they make a fortune. I mean, he'll be the first person to make a lot of money because right now they're making a tremendous amount of money. And isn't it interesting that Biden keeps talking about, you know, Ukraine and all, and everybody feels badly for Ukraine. One thing I have a problem with, though, is Europe, which is right there. And, you know, Europe is essentially the size of us. If you add all the countries together, it's basically the size of the United States. So if you look at it, Europe, so they're at $25 billion, and we're at $200 billion. Only a stupid person would make that deal. Why would they do that? I did that with NATO, too. You remember I said, no, wait a minute, everybody owes us money. They were delinquent. Almost every country was delinquent. And I said, you can't be delinquent. You have to pay. Otherwise, we're not going to protect you. And the head of a country actually stood up in a closed meeting. The press knew about it, very little reporting because it was too positive, and said, sir, does that mean that if we get attacked by Russia and we aren't paid up, you will not protect us? I said, yes, that's exactly what that means. Now, normally that would be a very controversial subject. But what happened is the money, hundreds of billions of dollars came pouring in. And Secretary General Stoltenberg, who's the head of NATO, was then and is now, a good man. I don't know if he'd still say this, but he said, Trump, that's the greatest job I've ever seen. He'd been working for his entire term trying to get other countries to pay, and he couldn't. And when I came in, everybody was just, the money was pouring in like gravy, so it was a great thing. And that's the money they have right now. But now we're doing the same thing. All you have to do is ask. If I ask you, if I say, look, here's the problem. We're in for $200 billion, and we have an ocean separating us, right? You're in for $25 billion, and you have no ocean separating you. Why aren't you paying up? And they would say, well, blah, blah, blah. You know, they always have. But if I say to pay up, they'll pay up. And they should equalize. If they're going to do this, they should equalize. Why are we $175 billion more? And I can tell you why, because we have stupid people representing us. That's why. And it's not a hard thing to sell. It's not a hard thing to sell. They understand it. Actually, I went to some countries, and I got deals so easy. They said, we've been waiting for you. We've been waiting. They just immediately agreed because it was so ridiculous. Japan, Prime Minister Abe was a great man. He was, as you know, a horrible thing happened. Shinzo, one of the people I like the most, and assassinated. Can you believe it? Assassinated. And he was an amazing guy. And I said, you know, Japan's really taking advantage of the United States, Shinzo. We have to do something. He said, I know. I said, what do you mean? He said, I know you're going to be coming in. And we ended up making an incredible deal for farmers, manufacturers, and everybody else. I mean, we had a horrible deal. We ended up making it a fair deal, a fair deal. A very good deal. They're tough to negotiate with, but a very good deal. He was a great guy. He was somebody that we miss. We created the strongest border in U.S. history. You know that, right? Built nearly 500 miles. We got Mexico to give us free of charge 28,000. So, when these characters say, oh, Mexico. When I say Mexico will pay for the wall, they did. Much more so than the wall. They gave us 28,000 soldiers for free. That's why we had the safest border in the history of our country. We had 28,000 soldiers while I was building the wall. Then we were adding that other 200 miles. We would have done it. We would have had that done within 3 weeks. All we had to do was install the panels. They were all built. Those are the ones you see sitting all over the ground. It's horrible. When I look at that, when I look at all of those things that we did, and then I just see the destruction that there's never been a president in the history of our country that's done a job so poorly, that's been so incompetent, so corrupt. There's never been anything like it. And I say, oftentimes I'll say, you'll hear me say, you could take the 5 worst presidents in the history of our country, and they will have not, you can add them up, and they will not have done the damage that crooked Joe Biden has done. And I mean that 100%. And now I could add it. I think I could probably say, take the 10 worst presidents. He's a horrible president. The only one that loves him, really loves him, is Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter's in this. Thank you. I got that thing off my back. No, I think Jimmy Carter's going to go down as one of the greatest presidents in history by comparison to crooked Joe Biden. I think Jimmy was great. So it's nice. He's pretty old. And he might even say, I really like Trump. He actually used to say, I really like Trump. Then the Democrats got to him, but he changed his tune pretty quickly. But he did. He liked me. But he's very happy with the job that Joe Biden is doing, which is basically a non-job. If he would have gone to the beach, he's got a consultant somewhere. This is the worst consultant in politics that thinks he looks good in a bathing suit, right? No, he spends so much time at the beach. How do you do that? And, I have a much better body than him. But I'm not really sure that I want to expose it with the sun blaring down, the sand, the surf, the wind, it's not a pretty sight. And they make those chairs, they're actually miracles. They weigh like 3 ounces. They're meant for a child to carry. A child or a very old person to carry. Very, very old. I mean, like really old. And they weigh like, ounces, right? He can't lift it. Remember when he said, I'd like to take him to the back of the barn. And I thought, I think I could go like this. And he'd go down. No, I think so. I hit a long ball. In golf. I'm a good golfer, all that stuff. This guy, I could hit a drive. It would take him 4 shots to catch up to where my drive is. But he used to talk about how he wants to take me to the back. And no, the press never criticized him for that. If I said that about him, they'd say, how violent. He's bringing violence into the equation. No, these are sick people. But if you want a president who leaves $500 million worth of wall materials, think of this, rusting in the desert, rusting in the sand, while illegal aliens stampede into your communities, walking over those panels, just walking right over them, they're laying there rusting and rotting brand new, beautiful stuff, then you should vote for crooked Joe Biden. If, on the other hand, you want a president who will seal the border, and by the way, let people come into our country, but they have to come in legally. Is that okay? But we have to stop the invasion and reclaim our sovereignty on day one, and that's what we will do. We will, because right now we don't even have a nation. Between our bad elections and our open borders, you need borders and you need elections, and then you start going from there. And we have horrible open borders. Who would even think of it, the people coming in, think of it. They're from prisons and jails, there is a slight difference. They're from mental institutions and insane asylums, there is a slight difference. Insane asylum is like Silence of the Lambs stuff. That's serious stuff. That's Hannibal Lecter. How good an actor was he? Did he play a good role, right? But insane asylums, they're emptying them out. Mental institutions, and then, of course, terrorists are coming in. And, in 2019, there was a report I saw on one of the fake news channels, but in this case, I don't think it was fake. They said that for 2019, I think the year was, they caught no terrorists. There were no terrorists coming into our country. And last month, as you know, they reported the highest number of terrorists that they've ever reported coming into our country. We're going to be paying a price. We're going to have the largest deportation operation in history, but we're going to be paying a price. So as you also know, I appointed nearly 300 judges and 3 great Supreme Court justices who gave us incredible victories. Last week, 2 weeks ago, if you go to college and you have bad marks and they let you in, but they don't let somebody else, it's called the merit system. They approved the merit system. I was surprised by that. They approved a merit system. So now you get into places, but in particular, in this case, colleges, you have good marks and somebody has bad marks. You get in. Before, other people got in for all sorts of reasons. They approved the merit system is what this country is all about. Is that amazing? And something that when politicians learn how to talk about it, they ended Roe v. Wade. They ended it. And And politicians just don't know how to talk about it. And we talk about it, and we talk about it proudly, but they ended Roe v. Wade. But I watched some of the politicians, some of your local politicians actually talking about it. They don't understand. The Democrats are the radicals because they'll kill a baby in 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, 9 months, and even after birth. They're allowed to kill, in some cases, after birth. You remember the crazy former governor of Virginia where he was explaining what happens. And then if it's after the 9th month and the baby is born, you put the baby aside, you discuss with the mother, and if the mother doesn't want the baby, we execute the baby. This is part of their thing. Oh, think of it. So they're the radicals. But you have to say that. You know, they always make the pro-lifers the radicals. They're the radicals. And when you think, now I happen to be like Ronald Reagan, the exceptions, rape, incest, life of the mother, the exceptions, 3 exceptions. I happen to be there. I think 75% or so, I see polls, I don't know. You have to follow your heart. But very hard to win elections without that, to be honest. Very hard to win. But you have to be able to speak about the subject. What happened was an incredible thing. They've been trying to get it for 52 years. They failed. For 52 years exactly, they've been trying to get it terminated, bring it back to the states. So many different things we won. But before, we had no power to negotiate. A pro-lifer had no power to negotiate. Now you have massive power to negotiate. And something will be negotiated because you have 2 sides to every year. You have people with other views, but we have a very strong view. But we had no power whatsoever until I came along and appointed 3 people that made this possible. And so you have now massive power to negotiate. And remember, again, you have to say, I mean, again, you have to follow your heart, but the exceptions, but you have to say, and it's so important, you have to say, they are the radicals. We are not the radicals. You can't kill. One thing, every poll says, regardless of what side you're on, and it's very even, it's about 49-51, and then it's 51-49. It switches over the years. This is for decades it switched. But you have to be able to say what's in your heart. You have to be able to fight for that issue if you believe in that issue. And a lot of people believe in that issue. But now for the first time, you have tremendous power to talk and to negotiate. The one thing the polls all say is that after the 4th month, or at least a certain number of months, everybody, no matter how much on the other side of the issue they are, don't want to see the baby killed. Everybody. And under Roe v. Wade, they could execute the baby at any time. You remember when I said with the debate, you rip the baby out of the womb with Hillary. I said she's willing to rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month. And the whole place winced. Even she winced. Because nobody wants to see after a certain time, any time, but after a certain time, almost 100% of the people agree in the 7th month, the 8th month, 4th month, but the 9th month and after birth, they don't want to see that happen. They don't want to see that take place. So when you speak about it properly, perhaps like I just spoke about it, I don't know, but when you speak about it properly, otherwise it's been a very devastating issue. That's what happened in the midterms. You had politicians that had no idea how to talk about the issue. It was new. It was shocking because nobody thought it would happen. I got that for you. And I got that for a lot of people they consider that to be the greatest achievement. But I just say, speak about it properly, speak about it right. It's an amazing thing that happened. And now you have tremendous powers of negotiation. And some people say, oh, Trump isn't pro-life enough. And other people look at him and say, I don't care what he's saying. That's the guy that got us here to talk in the first place. Because nobody else could have done it. Nobody else could have done it. So you're going to speak about it. You're going to speak about it properly and intelligently. It's a very, very complex issue and all. But we did a tremendous thing. Because remember, nobody, at a certain period of time, nobody wants to see death to those babies. Nobody. Almost, you could say, almost the most radical people on the other side. The Hamas terrorist invasion of Israeli territory, and the murder of Israeli soldiers today, and the brutal murder of citizens is an act of savagery that must and will be crushed. It has to be dealt with very powerfully. This is a time where the United States needs leadership. We don't have leadership. But Israel is at war, and the United States obviously is going to stick with Israel, and strongly. The war happened for 2 reasons. The United States is giving and gave to Iran $6 billion, $6 billion, over hostages. And, you know, there was a